I've been traveling far and I'm here now, Las Vegas, Nevada, coming to you with the Herd, H-E-A-R-D. We want to be heard by people's ears, especially by the people that we elect to office to represent us. We want to be heard. How about that for a unique concept, huh? We need to get back to the way this country of ours was created and founded. We the people, remember us? We the people. This country was founded for us, and we need to get back to where we are the people in charge. It's very simple. That's what this country was supposed to be. But like all things, when you have to rely upon giving people a certain amount of power so that they can enforce laws and whatnot, you have to give them the authority for arrest and to jail people, because any society, any free society, are going to have what we call outlaws. And those outlaws have to be wrestled into compliance with the laws of the land, and they may need to be incarcerated to teach them that you don't do these types of things in a free society, because that disrupts the whole purpose of being. So we have to get that point across to various outlaws. And that takes enforcement, and to be able to have people with the authority to enforce laws, we have to give them that authority. We can call them sheriffs or perhaps judges or anything like that. That these are people that are supposed to uphold the law, not make law. They're supposed to uphold the law. The people that make laws in this country are the legislators and Congress, which are legislators. And these are the people that we elect to a position that can propose laws amongst the other members of the House or what have you. They look over and debate these particular proposals, and then if they get all the way through the system, they become laws with a vote of the people that have been elected. And then those become the public policy of the particular body that represents the people that elected them. And then this becomes the law of the land where that particular body has authority. Let's say, for example, it's the state of Nevada. They have a Nevada legislature, the Assembly and the Senate, that look at laws that are proposed through their members. They digest them, debate them, analyze them, massage them, change them, modify them, whatever. At the end of the day, the final proposal is voted on. And then they become the law of Nevada by becoming statutes under the NRS, Nevada Revised Statutes. And these become the law of the state of Nevada. Now, judges are supposed to uphold these statutes. And judges cannot make law from the bench. They might be able to interpret a particular statute if it's vague, to where they're having a problem with a word, or maybe even a problem with the meaning of a particular statutes. Things like that happen occasionally because the people that we elect to make our laws and to be a assemblyman or in the Senate, what their backgrounds are or whatever they are, the point is they got elected somehow. And some of these people that now and then get elected, not everybody, but some of them, may not be qualified to be a dog catcher, let alone anything else, but somehow they get elected for whatever reason. Maybe they had a little notoriety, maybe the voters got mixed up with somebody else's name or what have you, and somehow they got elected. So you end up with some incompetent people in positions of power that do things, and they can muddy up the waters and make a disaster, really. But I would think that that would be exposed after a short time, and then the next go around those people would not be reelected. One would hope. But for example, we have in this country a more identifiable character that somehow got into power not once but twice, is Barack Hussein Obama. Of course, he didn't want that middle name to get out there too much. If you remember, the first time he was running, it was a no-no to say that name. If you were in the news media or anything like that, and boy, you said the word Hussein, man, I tell you what, you were going to be ostracized from CNN or whoever was reporting the news, NBC, CBS, what have you. You would have hell to pay. Now we have Donald Trump running for president, and look at what the news media is doing to him. Apparently, according to Bob Woodward, the Washington Post has 20 reporters assigned to just digging up whatever they can find about this unknown guy named Donald Trump. Well, first of all, that's pretty much a lie there in and of itself, because everybody knows who Donald Trump is. He has like a 100% name recognition. So he's not unknown, that's for damn sure. What's unknown about Donald Trump, or what more accurately reflects, is what they're afraid of Donald Trump, is that he's going to be the person in power, and not the mainstream news media is not going to have much to say about whether he gets elected or not. They're trying their best to find something on Donald Trump that's going to prevent him from being elected president. Well, good luck, but you know, you got 20 reporters working on him. Bob Woodward was on a show the other day, maybe Chris Wallace or something, and they were quizzing him a little bit about how many people does the Washington Post have assigned to Hillary Clinton. And you talk about evasiveness, the answer there wasn't very clear. When asked about Donald Trump, 20 reporters are working on him. Pretty, concrete statement there. 20. How many on Hillary Clinton? Well, I'm not aware of a specific number. There are people that are definitely reporting on various situations and so forth. How many actual reporters have been, I don't know, that's not my department, I don't know, all this evasiveness stuff. They probably have as many people working on the Hillary Clinton, reporting her background, as they do on the Barack Obama situation when he was running for office. We didn't even know who this character was at all. He was a first-term senator from Chicago, who prior to being elected to the Senate, he was a community disorganizer, is what I call them. Anybody that's a rebel rouser is a disorganizer, and their mainstream is they create havoc and destruction, and then they create a problem, and then they're the ones that go out on a platform that they're the only ones that can correct this bad problem that just kind of popped up, but he can correct it. That's a false smoking agenda if there ever was one. And we were fooled not once, but we were fooled twice by this guy. I don't know if the second time we were fooled or we had the rug pulled out from underneath us, or that hurricane that went through New Jersey had something to do with it. And you have all these events that kind of work against us, but you also had a candidate that turned out to be extremely weak, and that was Romney, who I thought he was a pretty good candidate there for a while. The first debate, he certainly won that hands down. He had Mr. Thrill Up His Leg, Chris Matthews, talking after the first debate that, oh my God, Obama, what happened to him? He got devastated, and that's Mr. Thrill Up the Leg Matthews. The whole news reporting team from CNN and MSLSDS and all these characters were just beside themselves because their chosen one that they all have, fireplace mantles in their living quarters where they bow to the altar of Obama, their hero, their chosen one. Well, he is what he is. He's a fake. He's a complete fraud. And without a teleprompter in front of him, he can't even talk. He doesn't know what to say. He was a complete puppet from some strings that were probably being controlled by MoveOn.org or George Soros or some of these other operatives that are giving millions and millions of dollars to the liberals and progressives to get their agenda put forth, which really is a destruction of the United States. George Soros is the typical craps don't player. He bets on the don't. he's one of those foul-looking persons at the crap table that's not jumping up and down and cheering when there's a hot roll. He's over there dying in his own bloodbath. You know, he's the one with a sourpuss face at all these crap tables. But he's hoping for devastation and destruction. And this is what you get, really, when you elect any progressive or Democrat into the liberal position of power. You're going to get policies and so forth that simply just plain don't work. You can hear these people running for the Democratic election to be president, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. What do you hear in their debates? You hear Santa Claus up there promising everybody everything. Free this, free that. That's all they've got, is trying to buy your votes. This is the whole reason behind the influx of illegals to this country that's been going on for decades, was a plan by the liberal progressives to get their base increased in size, to steal the electoral college by the number of people living in states like California, where the census that I think is done every 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, where they just count a head count. They don't count people that are registered to vote or this or that. They basically go door to door and they count the people, how many living here, living there, and they don't check to see if they're legals, illegals, or nothing like that. They're just counting heads. And that census that develops these head counts are what dictates how many electoral votes that particular state gets. And that's the danger. That's the danger of our legal system that we have, where we elect people through this electoral college and not the popular vote. And that's very dangerous. We've progressed now with internet information, a certain amount of education and so forth, to the point where half of our people in this country have been dumbed down by the liberal progressives to be stupid and need Santa Claus. You always have your hand out to get this gift or that gift. And the educational process that we have now is controlled by liberals, liberal teachers, liberal college professors that have got our minds of our young people, and they've brainwashed them into a bunch of gray matted mush between their ears. And you can see these people graduating from college are asked questions by various reporters, very simple questions, and you hear birds chirping. They have no clue what question they were just asked. They don't know who anybody is. They're just absolutely pathetic. Now, I'm not saying I was much better when I graduated from college, because but I'll tell you what, at least I had what I think is known as common sense. That hadn't been taken away from me. But the people graduating today, I don't think they even know what common sense is anymore. We need to resort back to the way that we teach our people in school. We need to have a class, CS 101, where we teach common sense. That's a necessity in this world now, to where we have people that are educated on how to figure out whether their mashed potatoes taste good or not on their own, not have to be told by a Bernie Sanders or a Hillary Clinton that, gee, those mashed potatoes are good for you that we just gave you, so be sure to vote for us again, because you can keep getting those great mashed potatoes. You could be eating sawdust with a little bit of milk mixed in, and as long as these liberal progressives told you it was good, half of the people in this country believe it. And you're eating garbage. And that's what they're dishing out to you, is absolute garbage. If you believe their promises and their utopian ideas that they're selling to you, they're never going to work, because you know why? They've never worked anywhere in the world. These ideas have been tried extensively all over forever, and they don't work. But of course, they don't want you to be taught history, because you might learn that in school, that, hey, wait a minute, this is called the USSR or the whatever. Look at Cuba, right 90 miles off our shore, where the average wage is $20 a month for these hard-working Cubans. And I'm sure they're hardworking. I don't know why they wouldn't be. It's their leaders, the Castro boys, that have taken their lives and destroyed them by this supposed utopian lifestyle where the government is everything. You work for the government, you're paid by the government, and everything about your entire existence is dependent upon the government. And that's a great utopian way of life, except half the people probably don't do a damn thing in Cuba because they don't have any incentive to do anything. Or they completely are underground, or they do things that are not copacetic or what have you. Who knows? I have no idea how they make it over there. I have no idea. I know that to have 50-year regime under the Castro is just absolutely deplorable. And to allow that 90 miles off our shore is probably another black mark, if you will, on our government and our leaders and so forth. Because when Obama goes trotting on down there to Cuba, for what reason, I have no idea. These liberal policies and things that come out of their administrations come basically from nowhere. Look at this thing with the bathrooms in North Carolina, this transgender stuff that's going on. Where did that come from? Where is this a big issue? For 0.3% of the country has any issues at all with transgenders or bathrooms? And I don't think anyone in North Carolina has ever had an issue over somebody going to a bathroom that either created a problem or made a problem or anything else. This is a completely manufactured, typical community disruption type rebel rouser game plan. And this is coming from the Obama administration. And after almost 8 years in existence, this is exactly what this man does. He digs up the worst possible plans out there that have no reason for being except they divide people and they create turmoil. And that's his whole game plan, is to disrupt the United States of America, because he is not really an American. I don't think he was born in this country. I think that he was brainwashed in Kenya or someplace else, some Muslim part of the world where he was brought up. Nothing is beautiful as a Muslim sunrise. Remember all these things in his book and so forth that he wrote prior to being president? Pathetic, just pathetic. How we have been so dumbed down that we would ever elect somebody of this caliber or non-caliber is just absolutely amazing to me. It's striking. And then what do we back it up with? Hillary Clinton? Are you serious? Let's go back. I know for you millennials and stuff, you're going to have a hard time with this one, and you haven't been taught history, so you don't know anything about the past whatsoever. About what the Clinton administration really looked like. But when they were first elected into office, Hillary and Bill, I can remember Hillary shooting off her mouth. I was talking to a lady the other day in Des Moines, and she said, why don't we look at the so-and-so tax, because that might be a good way to raise revenue to pay down the debt. That's what they were doing. They were running around creating phony stories from people that don't exist, and trying to raise every single tax they could possibly raise to get the deficit lowered. A bunch of crap, okay? What's the deficit now? The deficit is ballooned to $20 trillion and projected to go much higher. And what do we do about it? That lady in Des Moines there by the fence, what taxes does she want to raise now? Taxes don't work because they give the government money. The government doesn't make any money. They just take it from the people, and then they spend the money and buy votes with it, and buy or allow other people into the country that aren't going to be productive for the country, like these Syrian refugees and so forth. They don't even have IDs. We don't know who they are. We know a lot of the people, high percentages, are young men of military age, how do we know that these people aren't all terrorists that are coming in here for the most part? Especially this military age men. Who are these people? Well, like Donald Trump says, we need to pause and figure out what the hell's going on before we let any of these people in. And in a situation that we're in right now with American people with a high unemployment, this 5% figure is a phony baloney figure. With the situation we're in here, where we're graduating these people from college tremendously in debt because of the government, who give money, college loans and so forth, and any kid can get a loan, I guess, but they have no way of paying for it. But that's not something the government ever thinks about, because look at what they do. They just print more money. But anyways, these people are getting out of college. They don't have a clue what to do, how to do it, or anything else. So they go back to living at home with their parents, and they're tremendously in debt, and they have no hope. They have no way out of the hole that they've gotten themselves into. And this is what our leaders of this country have pushed us for. We need some dramatic, huge changes to be made. We need to basically go back to the fundamentals of America and capitalism and what we're supposed to be, not this utopian crap that the liberal progressives jam down our throats, because it simply doesn't work. We have got to get this place straightened out. And one way to help in doing this is to get Donald Trump elected president, because he has promised the American people, and this is a promise coming from a businessman, not coming from a politician. If a politician promises you something, if you could make a don't bet the other way, you'd probably win. Because one thing's for sure, politicians do nothing but lie. Oh, you could keep your doctor. Your health insurance is going to go down to $2,500 per year. All lies. And they knew they were all lies. A guy, Gruber, that was helping Obama, authored this crap that was jammed down our throat. We're all laughing at the American people, how dumb they were. You're going to believe that you can keep your doctor. What a joke that was. Well, we're paying the price now, folks. Health insurance has skyrocketed. The absolute opposite of what Obama promised. Of course, no government program works. No government program is ever going to do what it was built to do. It's going to do the opposite. And no government program ever goes away. Once enacted, that's it. I heard today in the newspaper, it's been reported that back in 2012, the Californians passed this revenue enhancement legislation, if you will, to where they were going to pass a state income tax increase on just the wealthy, so-called wealthy, making over $250,000 a year. And it was just going to be a temporary tax until the year 2019. Well, what happened? Now they're already rumbling, saying that if we don't make this tax increase to this temporary tax increase permanent, that we're going to face massive shortfalls in our budget, that are going to destroy our schools and blah, blah, blah. All this crap that they touted this was a temporary tax is now they're screaming that it needs to be made permanent or California's going to collapse. Well, you know what? Let it collapse. That's my solution for this stuff, this crap that goes on. Let it collapse. Let the government shut down. Let's try that for a couple of years, see what happens. Nothing will happen. That's what will happen. Nothing. We don't need this stupid-ass government that does things against the American people. Let the American people take care of themselves for a while, and let's see what gives. But with a Donald Trump at the head of this government, I think we can go a long way for getting some sensible things in place, and I think we can make some headway on eliminating the devastation that the last 8 years of President Obama has caused. It's been devastating, and it's going to just be terrible. And any consideration to a Hillary Clinton presidency has got to be just absolutely sick. We cannot stand that. It will ruin this country for decades. And think of what it'll do with the judiciary and the Supreme Court of the United States, which Obama describes right now as being tied. What does a president of the United States refer to a Supreme Court, a judiciary body, as being tied. What is tied? Is this a baseball game or something? What's tied? What he means, or what he is referring to, is that half the court's liberal and half of it's conservative. So in Obama's world, that's tied. Well, no judiciary could be ruled by politics, by which way the wind's blowing. That's not the way that you rule as a judiciary. You have to rule by law. You have to rule by the way the public enacted legislation and so forth through their representatives that become law. And you have to abide by the Constitution of the United States that was enacted and adopted by the states at the time. And you have to follow the law of the land. That's it. When the Supreme Court, with the Mr. Rhino Judge Roberts, I guess was a swing vote to allow this Marriage Act to go to anybody at all with genes, I guess. I don't know who. But anyways, you no longer had to be a female or male to be married and have offspring and so forth. You could be just two of the same sex. Now, I don't know where that came from, but I'll tell you what, it was dreamed up by a liberal, and a liberal court passed it, because this makes no sense whatsoever. If you want to live with your partner, whatever sex you both are, let you live together. I don't care. Let you have a contract, some sort of agreement between you two that if one gets sick, the other can have access to information. Whatever you think you're getting from a marriage standpoint, you can get from a legal standpoint too. This is all BS. This country has become nothing but BS. And it's because of the divided political parties that we have. We have two parties that will never ever agree to anything, and that's not the way to run a country. I don't know of any business in the world that runs with a divisiveness in their makeup of employees. No company has a for and against on an equal basis, because whatever the fors want, the against don't want it, and your company will collapse and go bankrupt. It's as simple as that. There's no rhyme to reason to run a government that way either. It's just stupid. And the devastation and the destruction that is caused by this whole political process is going to make this country collapse. It may not be tomorrow or next week, but if we don't get this train turned around and going back towards reality and the truth of a free market capitalistic types of system, we're going to fail. Communism is not going to work. Socialism is not going to work. Bernie Sanders needs to go back to Vermont and hang out there a little more. That's where he's from. That's where he's worked for elected office there, I think, his entire career. And he's just not qualified to be anything, but no liberal progressive is qualified to be anything, in my opinion. They are the biggest damn losers I've ever seen. They're for destroying the country. They just don't get it. Their ideology won't work. They want to give you fish. They want to feed you by giving you fish. Well, if the fish doesn't keep coming from the government, what happens? You starve to death. So their whole theory doesn't work. If you teach the person to fish, then they can get their own fish, and then they can survive and sustain themselves. You can't do it under liberal progressive policies. It won't work, period. So we need to get straightened out. We need to think about this. The other big issues that I have that I think need to be discussed and very important is things when they're done wrong, they cause damages, they cause devastation. And our policies are wrong, our two-party system's wrong. Everything about the way this government is currently run is wrong. And we have to change our tax system. I think we need to go to a consumption tax, period. No income tax whatsoever. You tax consumption, not production. And that needs to be done, and this country would explode with productivity. And this is what we need. And we need to get the government and these people that we elect, we need to get them out of the system to where they steal our money and then they give it back to us in dribbles and drabs, and they act like they're giving us something. It's like all the money in the whole world belongs to the government, and they'll just give us a little allowance or whatever to utilize. And they're the elite, they're the ones in charge, they're the ones that play Santa Claus and give you welfare and food stamps and feed you so you don't have to learn how to fish yourself. It's just a despicable system. To some developments that are going on with our judiciary here in Nevada that I think is just critical, that we have to get various things straightened out. And one of them is the court system here in Nevada. We have judges that must run for election. They have their term limited, if you will, to where they have terms. They're not limited really, but they have terms. And then they have to run for re-election. And that means when you have to run for office, you have to raise funds so you can get your name out there through billboards, signage, whatever, to get your name before the people so you can win the election. That's the absolute wrong way to raise, to be elected as a judge in any state. Now, judges have to raise campaign contributions. And where do they raise it from? Well, the easiest mark on the judges' decisions to make their living, their livelihood, pay their light bill, pay their secretaries, the phone. They have to get money, and they have to rely upon the judges making campaign contribution. If you as a litigant or a citizen try to give a judge a campaign contribution, you have a case before him, that's bribery. I mean, you go to jail. So it's just a system when you have to elect your judges. Now other states, I know for Oregon for one, they don't elect their judges. They have them appointed through a merit system. Somehow where judges are identified, their history is an open book, and the way that they've ruled is part of the considerations whether they should move up the chain and be a higher and higher judge or what have you. And you can't, for election, you can't go out and raise campaign contributions, which is nothing more than corruption. There's a system here, the judiciary, Washington, D.C., and they had a map that they posted, and on this map showed 50 states, and Nevada got a big fat F on the integrity of judiciary. Well, you see it every day here. You read things that just don't make any sense. One of these latest rulings from the Nevada Supreme Court is over the business, the commerce tax. 80% of the voters voted no on the commerce tax when it came up before on a ballot. And then the Rhino Sandoval gets elected into office, and what does he do? He immediately turns turncoat, becomes a liberal, and passes the largest tax increase in Nevada history. And in that tax, lo and behold, is this commerce tax that 80% of the voters of Nevada rejected before. What the hell is going on here? This is not right. And most of the elected people that were elected in the last Republican sweep, where they swept out a lot of the liberal progressives, now here we got these supposedly conservative rhinos in there that are Republicans in name only, and they rubber stamp Sandoval's tax increase. Pathetic. Our leaders that we elect are liars. They're just absolutely pathetic. So we have to clean house again. And we have to keep this up. until we get in there officials that will do the people's bidding. Now, what happens? The Supreme Court weighs in on a ballot initiative where they got 50-something thousand signatures to put the commerce tax part of the tax increase back on the ballot, a $60 million a year tax ding to the Nevada voters, and the illustrious Supreme Court with their, I don't know where the hell this comes from, some kind of liberal wisdom, I guess, strikes them from somewhere when they get in power, but their theory is that if they don't get this tax increase that's not there yet, being dinged against the business and so forth, that they're going to have a shortfall, a budget shortfall. We don't have this $60 million. That creates a devastating to the budget. No, you never had the goddamn money, for Christ's sakes. Let's wake up. All money is not yours. And if you give or don't get a tax increase, that's not a shortfall. You never had it to begin with. I mean, all money is not yours. And anytime you pass a ding like that, especially to businesses, you're creating less business. And that, in the long term, creates less money for your coffers. We need to get people elected, unlike a Nancy Pelosi that thinks unemployment insurance is great because for every dollar we spend, we get $1.79 back. That kind of economic reasoning is pathetic, okay? That's completely wrong and doesn't work. And she's a moron. And we have elected officials now in our courts and in our legislature and in our positions of power that don't get this. How do we have Cliven Bundy locked up? He's a Nevada citizen. What the hell is he doing in jail? And I think the final excuse was by some U.S. judge that, well, Bundy hasn't abided by previous court decisions, so he probably won't abide by future ones, so we need to keep him in jail because he doesn't follow court decisions. Well, let me tell you something, Judge. When you pass a decision and it's not constitutional, that's not a legal decision. A legal order has to be according to law. And you can't evade the law, you can't ignore the law, and it has to be legal. Or it's just a piece of toilet paper. You don't need to pay any attention to it whatsoever, and it has no force. But you see, you have these powers to be that abuse their power, and they lock up a Cliven Bundy. What did he do? That he might not abide by somebody that a judge says in the future? That's ridiculous. I mean, but this is what we get. Now, who gives Cliven Bundy his life back? These days that he's locked up in jail, away from his family, away from his life. Why was his life taken away from him? And by life, I mean his right to happiness and pursuit of this and that. Why has that been done? Because of a judge abusing their power? Oops, I'm sorry. Let's get the truth known. Because of Harry Reid, who happened to own land next to Cliven Bundy, and Harry Reid wants all the land up there so he can make a deal with the communist Chinese to be able to get a solar deal going on up there that helps him and his son Rory. That's what it comes down to. And this Judge Navarro was nominated by Harry Reid to be a judge, and the illustrious Obama appointed her. So there's your smoking gun, folks. There's your smoking gun. It goes right to Harry Reid. And this is what we get in Nevada. This is what we deserve, I guess, is this type of construction and destruction. Who gives Cliven Bundy his life back? That's what I want to know. And then in other situations, some have just come to light. And one of the particular cases that the Supreme Court just decided right, amazing, and every now and then they get something right. But this was an easy one. This should never have even come up that the Nevada Supreme Court had to make a decision. This just blows my mind that judges here sitting on the district court here in Nevada are so out of touch with the law. They just don't have a clue. And you had a judge, a district court judge, that made a decision on a case before him in the 8th Judicial Court here in Nevada, and he claimed or declared a judgment that mining claims that were real property in the state of California, in Riverside actually, be deeded to some litigants before a case here in Nevada through the Nevada court. Well, you know what? The real property not in Nevada is beyond the jurisdiction of the court here in Nevada. Anything not within the borders of Nevada is beyond the jurisdiction. And any judge, any person should know that. Just a human being that lives in this country should know that one state cannot control property in another state. That is so basic. It goes all the way back to the beginning of this country. There's case law, numerous case law, to the early 1800s. 1806 there was a case, Himley versus Rose or something like that. Might have been out of South Carolina, but it's a case regarding what states have control over property. And that was determined that only the state where the property is located can make a decision on the ownership of any property there. Very simple. There was a case in 1811 called Livingston versus Jefferson, as in Thomas Jefferson, our third president. This case was filed in Virginia, probably because that was the place that Thomas Jefferson resided. He was a defendant in this case because he had trespassed on some land that was located in Louisiana. Well, the suing party, the plaintiff, decided to file a case in Virginia, I guess, because that's where Jefferson was. Well, it went to the court. There was a guy there by the name of Marshall, famous name in judiciary. I think he went on to become a Supreme Court justice, I think. But at any rate, the judge makes a determination that the property at issue was not in Virginia, it was in Louisiana. Therefore, the only place a case could be filed for any type of determination would have to be Louisiana, because only that state can control title to land. Very simple. God, it doesn't get easier than this, people. It does not get easier than this. And then we've had cases on up the ladder. 1878, there was a case, Penowa versus Neff, that determined that only states that have property within their borders can make any determination on the ownership of that property. Period. Penowa versus Neff, a famous case. Then let's move on and let's make it a trust case, for example, because that's the point of this conversation. There was a case, Hansen versus Deckler, a case emanated out of Florida. The Florida Supreme Court determined that in one of their probate court, they wanted some stock worth $400,000 that was located in Delaware be transferred to the court in Florida so that the probate court down there could divide that up between beneficiaries and, I guess probably in the process, get their pound of flesh off of that, because probate courts get a percentage of the action. So they wanted their money, so they made a decision, the Supreme Court of Florida, that trust assets needed to be transferred from Delaware to Florida. Well, it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court looked at the facts and said, well, wait a minute, where's this trust property located? Is in Delaware? What are we doing in Florida? Florida has no jurisdiction over the subject matter of this case. The subject matter is located in Delaware. The thing is located in Delaware. And they also had asked that the Supreme Court make a decision on a personal jurisdiction over the trustee of the trust, who also was located in Delaware and had no relationship with Florida at all. Well, the court really had two things to decide. They decided the issue really was a subject matter of where the trust assets were located. Because they were located in Delaware, that was it. They decided the case on that basis alone. But they did go on to say that in a case where subject matter has been decided, personal jurisdiction over the trustee doesn't really matter. However, in this case, because the trustee wasn't in Florida anyways and didn't have any ties to Florida, that didn't matter in this particular case. That anytime they try to get the jurisdiction of a person, the person had to be before the court in that state. So they just kind of made a double ruling there. But the ruling on personal jurisdiction had absolutely nothing with the determinative ruling, which was where was the property located. Now, just like Penoa versus Neff, they mentioned Penoa versus Neff in that famous Supreme Court ruling of Hansen versus Deckler. They also go back in Hansen versus Deckler. They go back to Rose versus Himley, or whatever the name of that one is. Another one, Gordon versus Overby, and Livingston versus Jefferson, and the local action doctrine, and all these Supreme Court decisions from the past pop up again and again as these various rulings come along. Well, this case that happened in California, it happened here in Nevada, but a Nevada judge ruled that real property in California had to be deeded per the instructions of a Nevada court. Well, I guess that went through, and these property rights were actually deeded over by the court of law here in Nevada, the district court, and then it went to the Supreme Court. And the motion before the Supreme Court, the pleading, mentioned all the cases, a lot of them that I just mentioned. It even mentioned Hansen versus Deckler in the plead, and pled Penoa versus Neff, and Gordon versus Overby, and Rose versus Himley, and all those cases were mentioned. Well, the Supreme Court just weighed in April 22nd of 2016, the Nevada Supreme Court, pointing to other Nevada Supreme Court decisions that preceded it. Buas versus Buas is one. It mentioned Dirk versus Durfee is a case that happened in Nebraska, between Nebraska and bordering another state there, Montana or whatever it was, where the decision was decided that wherever the property is located is the law of the land as to who owns that property, and no other state can infringe upon that. And here we go again. We had a judge in Nevada that rules that land had to be dictated the way the Nevada judge said. Well, that's overturned now. As of April 22nd, that ruling is no longer good. It's been vacated and classified as void. Well, the case that we've been talking about around here now for 10 months, with stories published in the Las Vegas Tribune over the Feeley versus Feeley case, had a decision come down from the appellate court, which is the lower court underneath the Supreme Court, and in their wisdom, they decided that I had pled Hansen versus Deckler to the appellate court, and they referred to that case, and then they kind of worded everything there a little bit, trying to convolute it, I guess. I don't know why it's so hard for them to get anything right, but they said the Supreme Court case Hansen versus Deckler was about property located in Florida. And then the very next sentence, after stating that in their ruling, they say, but the Supreme Court determined that the property wasn't actually located in Florida. Well, why the hell is that first sentence still in there? Don't you all have word processors down there where things can be easily changed? Why do you leave a misstatement in a ruling? Isn't that stupid? That's what causes problems with court rulings. You people are evasive. You don't answer the question. Okay? What is wrong? Is this tough? When you don't have property located within the borders of your state, you don't have jurisdiction. It's as simple as that. This is not complicated, folks. Go back to kindergarten and learn that. Every other student down there probably has a pretty good grasp on that. Why doesn't the appellate court judges have a grasp on that? Why doesn't the district court judges here in Nevada have a grasp on that simple concept? If the property's not within the borders of Nevada, you don't have jurisdiction. End of case. Okay? Why do plaintiffs, why do people that have been damaged, why do they have to go through year after year after year of trying to get the right ruling from the Supreme Court here in Nevada, or any place else for that matter? Why is it so hard to get the right ruling? I'll tell you why. Because in the state of Nevada, we'll go back to my original point. In Nevada, judges are elected. They have to run campaigns. They need money for those campaigns. And where they get their money from for these campaigns is given to them, extorted from them, let's put the words right, from the judges looking for campaign contributions. If you don't make a big enough check to me, you're not going to get good rulings in my court. Simple as that. And that's been said. That has been told to lawyers practicing in this community. There were a couple of reporters that came from the LA Times back, I think, in '06 or somewhere around there, '09, what have you. Came here and did a 4-part series on the corruption of the Nevada courts. And that's what they determined. One of the biggest issues was that judges in Nevada are elected and have to raise campaign contributions, and these judges hold themselves little campaign money raising events, and they have a big bowl there, and you better put, if you're a lawyer there, you better put a nice sized check in that bowl over there. Or don't you have a case in front of me next week? Well, you better, I don't see a check over there in that bowl from you, you better get one over there if you expect to have a decent ruling. And that's the way it's done. So all this is done, all these disruptive, damaging rulings that are made from district court judges here in Nevada that are contrary to the Constitution of the United States cause damages. In my particular case, over $600,000 was distributed to Nevada lawyers. Now, because that case is not going to be upheld, because the Supreme Court just ruled on April 22nd a case exactly like this, where a judge is trying to control property outside the borders of Nevada, is going to fail. That's void. That whole ruling that Judge Earl made is void. Now what's going to happen? All that money that was given to lawyers, one of them is dead, is going to have to be returned somehow to the trust. These mining claims, we're doing an investigation right now trying to figure out what was the devastation that was caused by this ruling from the district court here regarding the deeding of California property to people in Nevada, and now it's been overturned and that ruling's been ruled void. What's going to happen there? How much devastation has that resulted from? And how is that money going to be restored back to the property owners that had their property stolen from them from the Nevada District Court judge? Who pays for this devastation? Who pays the damages? Who mitigates this? When a judge makes a stupid ruling that's unconstitutional, that a kindergarten student probably could have got right, what the hell happens? What happens? It's unbelievable. Tomorrow I have a court hearing where Judge Gephardt is going to make a decision on legal fees. A lawyer has gone into court. I've made a motion that property that belongs to me be given to me. It was awarded to me in the judgment. I have the judgment. It was awarded to me. It's my property. Nobody says it's not my property. But what happens is a lawyer, a losing lawyer, not the prevailing party, they don't have anything to do with me or my property, they put in a bill against the property. And this Judge Gephardt's considering awarding them fees against me. I'm the prevailing party. I won the judgment. This is my property. And this guy is thinking of awarding money against my property? Where does this come from? Go back to kindergarten, Bill. Come on. This is simple, simple, simple stuff. My God, what is going on? Is it all over campaign contributions? Are you guys that distorted that it's all about money? I guess so. That's what it is about everywhere else, isn't it? Always follow the money. Well, what we're following apparently here in the state of Nevada is devastation caused by illegal orders that are actually unconstitutional and ignore United States Supreme Court decisions. That's unlawful. That goes against the Constitution of Nevada. Article 1, Section 2 is about the state of Nevada has to uphold all higher court decisions. And that includes the United States Supreme Court. So Hansen versus Deckler is a binding, mandatory U.S. Supreme Court decision that all lower courts must follow. Try to follow along, Mr. Judge Gephardt. Try to do a little bit of homework. Do you have any grandchildren or anybody that's in kindergarten? Why don't you call them up and ask them how to do your job? Might be a good thought for you to look into before tomorrow. Anyways, this has been quite the experience here in Nevada. I guess there's a bunch of other people going through the same process right now that just got a definitive ruling on April 22nd to where the court now has been overturned, and whatever devastation they've caused has to be straightened out. And boy, oh boy, we'll see who pays the price on that one. We're going to make an investigation. I'll tell you what, when things like this happen, the state of Nevada has to pay the price. Simple as that, and that means you taxpayers. So you all need to wake up.